Yes, this wretched season is going right to the last, I'm afraid. I think deep down, we all suspected it would. Just what Derby are going to need isn't clear. We'll find out tonight after Rotherham's trip to Luton, which gets underway in just over an hour. What is for certain, Derby cannot afford to lose against Sheffield Wednesday at Pride Park on Saturday. If they do that, the Rams will definitely be playing in League One next season. Evening from Chris Coles. I hope all things outside of football are well. But given the role Derby County plays in so many lives, it's not surprised that the morale of the city feels very low at the moment. It could still, remarkably, be all okay, but it's the waiting that's horrible. Firstly, for tonight's game between Luton and Rotherham, and then waiting for the big showdown on the weekend. A bumper panel for you tonight. The trio who ended Saturday with me are back. We have Rams commentator Ed Dawes. Ed, evening to you.
Good evening, Chris.
Former Rams goalkeeper and goalkeeping coach Eric Steele is here as well. Eric, hello.
Good evening, gang.
And another former Derby player, midfielder Adam Boulder. Adam, hello to you.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, good to have all three of you with me. Thanks for your time. And to be honest, how much you all say is very much down to you guys out there, because it's you we really want to hear from. 0800 145 6161, free phone number, 81333, the text number, Derby at the front of your message, at BBC Derby Sport on Twitter. And we're also live on the BBC Radio Derby Sport Facebook page if you'd like to watch the programme as we progress through it. Now, before we get into it, I know most of us know this already, but I know I've said this quite a lot recently as well. Everyone is very much entitled to their own opinion, whatever that opinion might be, which includes our panellists. And just because you happen to disagree, you don't have to launch into conspiracy theory diatribe or get personal. The art of debate and disagreement over the last years, actually, across society, it's fair to say, not just sport, it just seems to have been lost. So let's keep it clean. Into the calls in a moment. I must admit, I don't really know where to start because there are so many avenues all to attack. But I guess before we get into specifics, Adam, kick us off with this, only because you're alphabetically first in the list, and that's the only reason I'm coming to you first. It's hard to find a word, I think, to illustrate how big a week this is in the history of Derby County Football Club.
Absolutely massive. And like you say, well, I don't know how far you can go back, but, you know, suffering defeat against Sheffield Wednesday it'll be carnage because it will take so long to rebuild. I know we've spoken about, you know, just stay in the league this year and then you can rebuild in the summer. The worst thing that can happen is to get relegated.
Ed, you've covered the club for an awfully long time. You've supported Derby for an awfully long time. The magnitude of the next few days, well, the magnitude of tonight and then Saturday is not lost on anyone.
No. It's, I think, as you said at the start, the impact of relegation to the third division would be massive on the city of Derby, especially at a time when the city of Derby and the county as a whole is rebuilding itself and wants to attract people into the city to come and spend their money. And you get that when you're playing football clubs of a certain size who come to Pride Park. And that's no disrespect to any of the teams in League One, but the majority of them are not as big as the clubs in the Championship. There are some big clubs in there, which makes it even more of a challenge should anybody have a thought about bouncing back should they get relegated. But for the economy of the city and the county as a whole, relegation of your only football club is an enormous thing. And for everyone's sake, I really hope it doesn't happen, not only for the supporters, but for everybody connected, because you look at TV revenue, you look at sponsorship, and obviously what sponsorship brings to the businesses who are advertising at the football, all that kind of stuff. It has an absolute knock-on effect all the way down the chain. A lot like when we talk about Bombardier, when we talk about Rolls-Royce, and we talk about jobs going and the supply chain. It's very different, but not too different, because it's such an important business in the city of Derby. And the fact that it's in this position in the first place, well, that's the conversation for next week. But this weekend is enormous.
And Eric, Ed's hit the nail on the head, really, with a lot of those aspects. There are some cities in England where the football club is the first thing you think of. And Derby is one of those places that Derby County is such a huge part of so many people's lives in the city that a club going down is always catastrophic. But it feels for the area and for the people that work very hard to support their local football club. The last year has been agonising. Last year and a half has been agonising because they can't be there. So to lose the club into League One, albeit, yes, we know in football there are far worse things to happen, but it's not a surprise that everyone you speak to and everyone just wants to talk about one thing at the moment, and that is what is going to happen to Derby County in the next few days.
Yeah, and it's on the back of an absolute shambolic 11 months. And the very fact that we've actually miraculously are still in with a chance of surviving on Saturday. I go back to it. My constant and consistent thoughts were this league is a poor league. That makes it even harder for me to accept if we do go down, because this is one of the poorest championships we've seen. So that really does tell you how far Derby have sunk in terms of the on-the-field activity and off the field. If I take a note from Roger Davis, ex-player, ex-Ram, ex-Radio Derby summariser, he used to work at Rolls-Royce and used to say production went up by so many percentage on a Monday morning when Derby had won.
Yeah.
You can imagine what it's going to do if we do go down. As Ed said, hotels, bars, restaurants, we are not going to attract people like 3,000 people who are going to get here at midday, then trundle into the ground at 2 o'clock. We're going to get nowhere near that. So I hope the players realise very quickly now that it's not just their jobs that are on the line here. There's a lot of people in that football club will be looking over their shoulder. And that is always a constant concern for me, that it might be a reduction in staff, training ground, the main stadium, and that is the big worry. And then it will affect everybody. Everybody associated with Derby, everybody associated with the club will be affected. So hence why we're all going to be hanging on tonight for the Luton score, and then obviously then we know exactly what we'll have to do on Saturday.
Yeah, it all will become clear. And it's kind of clear already, to be honest. Derby, they can't afford to lose, we know that much, but it's whether a point will be enough or whether they will have to go and win the game. If Rotherham win, then it might not even matter what Derby do, because if Rotherham beat Luton tonight and Cardiff on Saturday, then yeah, regardless of the result at Pride Park, Derby and Sheffield Wednesday will both be relegated. We'll run maybe through the permutations a little bit later on. Going to Ben, who's kicking us off very shortly. A few of your messages first. No name on this text. Do put your names on the messages when you send them to us, 81333, and at BBC Derby Sport on Twitter. Derby at the front of your message if you're texting us. Evening, chaps. Just my 2 cents. I can accept us getting relegated. Let's be honest, we deserve it. But what I can't accept is the lack of effort and execution from the board, the staff and the players. I won't be going next season regardless of the division unless and until that changes. I want to see desire and passion and a group of working people with pride to wear the black and white. Terry says, while there's a chance, there is certainly hope, but I think whatever happens on Saturday, Wayne Rooney has to go. Tom says, I think it is for definite that either way, relegation or survival, Rooney will go at the end of the season because performances under him just haven't been good enough since that initial new manager bounce. And Danny says, I don't feel like there is any hope of staying up as the last few games have been vital, but the players haven't demonstrated they realise this, and that's not likely to change on Saturday. 81333 at BBC Derby Sport. And as far as the calls are concerned, Ben is going first tonight. Hello, Ben.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Well, as a Derby fan, not very good.
No, yes, it's an obvious question to ask and has an obvious answer at the moment. I do accept that. So what do you want to say? There are so many different facets to this season that fans can go at. So what is the biggest concern for you at the moment?
The biggest concern for me at the moment is because Mel Morris obviously wants to sell up and go. What's going to happen there? But Wayne Rooney needs to go regardless of if we're not paying his wages or not. 32 Red obviously paying his wages at the moment. So he's sitting there in the management. Terrible performance. He's sitting on a good thing. He's making tons of money. He doesn't want to go. And meanwhile, everything is getting worse and worse and worse. I just want to make a reply to this person who was no name at the start of the show, the text. He said, regardless of what the thing will be, he won't go. Well, Derby need us next season, regardless of if we're in League One. We need to go because there's no money in that league. We need to buy season tickets. We need to buy away tickets. We need to support our team and push money into our team, regardless of if the performances are bad or not.
Ben, as always, with and you're obviously far from the only one that is pretty disillusioned with life at the moment under Wayne Rooney. When he was initially given the job on a permanent basis, what did you think then?
I thought I was excited about it because I was one of those people who ran out and got a Wayne Rooney blue shirt with Rooney on the back and, got all excited about him coming to the club. And I was excited about it. But obviously, give it 3-4 months and he wasn't showing the potential that we thought he would show. And I said he should have gone months ago. But they kept him in. And it's kind of worrying. Why is he staying in his job? Like, do they not want to pay a more qualified manager? Or,
Well, we know there's certainly financial reasons behind Wayne Rooney not going, even if the board wanted to get rid of Wayne Rooney, because at the moment, as we know, financially, the club are not in a great position at the moment. Ed, I know you've been doing a little bit of research when it comes to managers and recent managers, and it's fair to say, and it's not going to take a genius to work out, all you've got to do is look at the table and the previous results, that obviously Wayne Rooney's win ratio at the moment doesn't exactly stack up with previous managers, many of whom lost their jobs with better win ratios.
Oh, it's bonkers, honestly. The managers that have been sacked for very little at Derby over the last 7 or 8 years, their records are nothing compared to this one. Wayne Rooney's had 35 games. He's won 10, lost 18 and drawn 7. He had a new manager bounce, which obviously took Derby out of the relegation zone that Philip Cocu had got them into. But this run, of course, is 16 games, won 2, drawn 3, lost 11. Cocu never had a run that bad. His worst run was played 13, won 1, lost 8, drawn 3. Before that, Lampard's worst run was 3 wins in 13 matches, 5 draws. Gary Rowett, his worst run was 11 games, 1 win, lost 3. Even Steve McLaren, Steve McLaren was sacked first time round, having the first time he got hold of that Nigel Clough team, he won 8 in 9 and drew 1. It goes on, and I just think you have to go back to Paul Jewell, who had 26 games in charge in that Premier League season. He drew 6 and lost 20 of them, but obviously Derby were well relegated before they officially were. It's a bad state of affairs, and I agree with the caller, because I just think this run that Derby are on now, whether it ends in safety or not, I think everything that hangs with it, the lack of freshness, if the same management team are still in position next season, worries me. Because I talked about it on Saturday about the experience of actually doing the job. There's not a lot of experience in there. And I just think without a clean slate, without a clean freshness to that squad, a couple of results at the start of next season could start, certain players could go into a rut, they could have flashbacks, all that kind of thing. Because we've seen it before. I interviewed Kevin Wilson today about the Great Escape in 1983 when Derby beat Fulham on the last day to stay in the second division, and that you'll hear that in a Retro Ram special tomorrow night. But that team, they went on a 15-game unbeaten run, lost 2 matches at the end of the season, won the final one, which kept them up. The following season, Peter Taylor, the manager, had all these great expectations and feelings and wanted to bring in quality players, so they're never going to be in this position again, and they got relegated. So I just feel when you've had a season as bad as this one, I think a clean slate, could be a good idea. Mm-hmm.
Adam, Brian Clough used to famously say, a lot of talk about tactics and formations and strategies, said by people who couldn't win a game of dominoes. It's always been about the players and will always be about the players. Indeed, it's not just Brian Clough who has said that there's the top managers often say, listen, if you've got a good squad of players, then your job becomes a lot easier. So I guess the big question is, should Wayne Rooney be doing better than he currently is with the current group of players that he's got?
So it's a tough one. What I've seen, the players haven't got the mentality to be winning the games. They've not got enough experience. There's just not enough about them. As soon as they concede, that's it. It's game over. My biggest worry is if the last 10 games, if Derby had been a horrific run, but they'd have won 1-1, lost 3, drawn 1, won 1, lost 4. But the biggest problem is losing 7 on the bounce and expecting to pick something up in that final game is a big ask. But yeah, players for me, players are what win your games.
And Eric, it is the age-old debate, isn't it? It's players, or is it the manager? It's always the manager that takes responsibility. Ultimately, that's always the way it has been. But we've gone from a position of Wayne Rooney being, and he was lauded at times during the run of 6 wins in 8 or whatever it was. It feels an awfully long time ago now. But his record, as Ed has mentioned, does not look good for him, especially where you look at where Derby are in the table and you look at all those L's stacking up as well.
I think ultimately, if you're going to release Wayne Rooney, should have done it 8 games ago. Steve McLaren in charge for the run-in. That hasn't happened. The team, all it's done from then has got worse. And the performances have got worse. We can't score more than 1 goal, other than when we beat Luton, I think the first weekend in April. So that's why, as I agree with our other pundits tonight, is ultimately the hardest thing you look at on Saturday is we're going to need to score at least 2 goals to win the game for me. Because whenever we go 1 up, we prove we can't stay in the game. We can't hold on. As Adam said, even if we're drawn some of these games where we've got ahead against Blackburn, where we've gone ahead against Birmingham, them points, just think what they'd have been. So ultimately, I think Wayne Rooney will go. Whether we stay up or not, I think Wayne will go. I don't think this is I don't think this is what he expected. He hasn't been backed because he hasn't been able to be backed. He wasn't able to spend. I mean, crikey me, he was signing players waiting in January. So his impression of, his first time in management, it's been crisis management. And albeit, yes, he's done some things wrong, and there's going to be a blame shared totally from top to bottom. But ultimately, he's been crisis management since he took over. We were signing loan players 3-4 days before. We knew we'd lost Bielik. We needed a playmaker. He couldn't sign anybody for money. And we end up taking, really, the scraps in terms of the loans 2-3 days before the actual transfer deadline closed. And ultimately, they've come in and they've not played as big a part as you'd want. But then it never happens in January. Very rarely do you sign players in January who have a major impact. So the major impact players have been people that have come in out of contract. Kazim Richards came in November, out of contract. Jordan Ibe, we haven't seen him. Bobby Duncan, we haven't seen him. So has he had the right tools to work with? No. Could he have done better with the tools he's got? Yes. I fully expected, and I've done this on a Monday night with you regularly, I thought we had enough within this squad, and I've just been absolutely amazed at the lack of commitment, the lack of fight, the lack of ability to actually get on the ball and want to play. That's what's really got to me. And I just look and go, wow. I was one that said, I thought we had enough to stay up. And I've just had the severe doubts over the last 2-3 weeks after what I've seen on the field.
Ben, I've got to move on. Others need to speak to us, but final word to you on this. How much, clearly you want Wayne Rooney to leave the club, but how much blame do you feel the players should shoulder for all of this?
I just want to say that, obviously I want Rooney to leave the club, but he's done loads for English football, so I don't have a problem with the guy. He's a good bloke, and he's done a lot for England as a football team at World Cups, Europeans, the lot. The players, they need to kind of come together and be like, okay, this team means a lot to a lot of people. Let's go out here tomorrow, forget about where we're going to be next season, and just get on with it and win the game, and then go away and think about what we're going to do next season. Whether they're going to still be with us next season and they want to push us back to the Championship and be passionate players and stay with us and bring us back up, or if they want to go.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a massive summer, isn't it? Regardless of what happens on Saturday, you feel it's a big old reset and a refresh needed for Derby. Ben, great to speak. Thank you very much for it. I'd say enjoy the rest of your evening. I dare say it might be dictated by events at Kenilworth Road. But thank you very much for getting in touch. We're moving very swiftly on to Tim, who has given us a call, 0800 145 6161, free phone number. Tim, evening to you.
Evening, how are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. What's on your mind?
I was just listening. I think, to be fair, I think if it wasn't for you guys, I think we'd all struggle with this, It makes us all feel we're all in this together. And you know what? It's I'm so embarrassed about the current situation. It's appalling. And, I listened to Ed a lot last week and again today, and I think he just makes so much sense. And what he's saying is exactly how I feel and probably how a lot of people are feeling. It has been absolutely atrocious. And like the last caller said, how everybody cares for the club and this, that and the other. I just don't think most of the players do. I think we care. and I think a lot of the ownership care, admittedly, but I don't think those players give two hoots. I don't think they care whatsoever. They're thinking ahead like a snooker player. Where can my next move be? Where can I go? I'm getting out of here. I'm not interested. And if we drop, and I'm pretty convinced we will, we can't go into League One with that attitude. And I also don't think we can go into League One with the current manager. As much as I like Wayne Rooney, I think we need somebody like Chris Wilder. I think we need somebody who's experienced in that league to get you out of that league, to stabilise you and get you out of the Championship eventually and then back to the promised land a good distance from now. But I think he needs to recruit the right players and make us good again. And if we go down with a load of prima donnas that are thinking they're miles better than the League One, we'll get tonked every week and we'll end up falling down and down and down that league. And I don't think we'll ever claw out of it. And that's my fear. I think we've got the wrong man. I think we've got the majority of the wrong playing staff. And I think that's just a recipe for us just spiralling. And I think we need to nip it now. And maybe Steve McLaren has not been very vocal. Maybe he's got to be one of the people that make the decision on the manager. Maybe he's distancing himself. I don't know. We've not heard much from the club. A bit disappointing in that because we'd like to have something, but we've not really heard much all year. And I think if it wasn't for you guys putting it back to us, I don't think we ever would. It would make it even worse.
And Tim, the club very much know how we feel. We absolutely love to chat to Mel or to Stephen or to Steve McLaren. Absolutely would love to, but the club have made their position very clear. Until there is resolution off the field, they won't be saying anything. Now, that's frustrating for everyone. Of course it is, and it's why situations happen that we are seeing, and fans get really angry. Someone wanted to come in there. There's three of you, and because I can't see any of you, I don't know who it was.
Yeah, it was me. It was Ed. It was just about the conviction and conviction and the whole sort of ethos of eyeing up your next move. And I mean, I haven't played the game, but I don't get the sense that I think they're trying. I do think they're trying. I think they're trying, but I just don't think the quality is there. And I think that Adam and Eric, who have played the game, will tell you that players don't go out necessarily to play a game of football thinking about their next move. I really don't think that they can possibly do that. But I'm sure they have doubts in their future because, as we made the point earlier, Derby get relegated, people lose their jobs, whether they're on field or off field.
Yeah.
Can I just come in there, Chris?
Yeah, please do.
I don't think the caller's making some good points, and I do believe the Derby public majority will be back, as they've proved. I came here in '84 after they'd been relegated, and I turned up the first day. We had 6 players pre-season, and we know what happened after that. We had to rebuild that year. We went up, and then we went up. 2 promotions in, so it can happen. Other clubs have done it. Yeah. The problem we've got is you look at the present squad. There's going to be at least 10 players going out the door. So whoever gets the job, there's a massive rebuilding programme to go on in terms of the structure of the club. And a lot of people are asking that, whatever owner we get, how the structure has to change. We can't continue this way. Do we have a technical director? Do we have the board? Do we have 4 or 5 on the board? Do we have people with expertise within? There's a lot of major factors got to change. But going back to the players, my biggest problem is that, yes, they don't go out. They won't go out Saturday thinking of losing. But what I find is it's the mentality is as soon as something goes wrong, that's where they are limited players. And we've had that. And we've had that all season, that they cannot recover from a simple pass and they go missing. They can't put, how many times Ed and I have said, and Adam's watched the games the same, the reason why we can't put 4, 5, 6 passes together in opening starts of games. So we don't even retain the ball. So we're always on the back foot. And that's been the story of the last 10 games. That is a huge mentality. To try and turn that around, you can only, and I've said it, you can only squeeze some of these players so far. Not a time for the kids. That's why the disappointment was on Saturday, which Ed and Adam spoke of. That was the most experienced team we had. And we blew it in 5 minutes through lack of concentration. So there is ability within the squad. Of course there is. Tom Lawrence has come back and all of a sudden looked more like what we wanted. And we've missed him. But we've seen nothing. Wayne's dilly-dally with the team at times. The substitutions I've disagreed with. You take senior people off. Shinny's probably our top 3 players. He gets brought off and we send on Max Bird. Kazim comes off. He cannot be our worst forward. He's our leading goal scorer. He gets dragged off. So there has been errors made by Wayne, certainly. Team formation, certain substitutions. But ultimately, you still throw that 11 on, wear the shirt, and for goodness sake, give more than what we've seen.
Tim?
Yeah, I agree with it, and I think it's just the position we're in is the position we're in. We can't do anything about that, and we can't do anything about it come tonight or come Saturday. It'll be what it'll be, and none of us can make an impact on those games. It's down to the guys to do it. I just look at, as trying to be so positive about it, and as much as I bleed through Derby with it, and I would love to turn around and say, no, we'll be fine, we'll stay up. I don't think we've got a cat and hell's chance, and I honestly don't. And if we do, well, say when we do drop, what sort of players are we going to attract? Because a lot of those heavy strikers that can knock in 30 goals a season that have come up with clubs like Peterborough and so on and so forth, they're not going to want to drop back down to that league. They're going to want to progress themselves and better themselves. So who are we going to pick up? We need to pick up 2 or 3 strikers that can do a couple at 15, one at 30. Where are we going to pick those strikers up from? Where are we going to get that combative midfield? Because First Division is going to be a different game to we've ever played. And whenever we've played those sort of teams in cup games and everything else, we're dreadful. So who are the players that we have got? I know Bielik's played for Charlton in Division 1 before they came up, so I'm sure he's a grafter that will put his head down and graft if we keep him. Jozwiak, he played at a lower league in Poland. Maybe he will adapt quite well and flourish in that league. Byrne, he's certainly a championship player, definitely, but, Wigan, are in that other league. There's a lot of players, I think, that could cope, but we're going to need to recruit top draw First Division players that are going to keep you in that league and possibly get you out of it. And I just don't know, out of the squad we'll have left, who we've got that will really excel in that. Certainly from the striking department. Yeah,
and recruitment, Tim, is a good word. I'll go on to that in a minute. Ed?
I was just going to say this: if they drop, this is where the youngsters learn their trade. Now, there was a very interesting conversation between Mel Morris and Craig Ramage about not winning things with kids, because kids who are coming through from academy football don't necessarily have, at that level, coming from academy straight into the championship, they don't have that sort of education of the game of football. If it was the Central League, then it would be like that. So I remember what Craig said at the time. He said, if you put loads of kids in the team, you'll get nowhere near promotion and you'll struggle. Now, ultimately, he's been proven right, hasn't he? But yeah, I think in League One, you can bring in these kids. They've gone, and I hate to say this, they've gone backwards in the last 2 years when they've come in. I mean, Louis Sibley's not the player he was when we first saw him. Jason Knight is there or thereabouts. Max Bird looks as though he suffers with confidence. And these are the players that the chairman was saying that they're going to be in the team every week. There's going to be 5 of them. And these are going to be the people who are going to get Derby in the top 6. Now, it's not happened. And their confidence as kids will be so low. And I just think League One is an area that they can probably build. If it comes to that, they could probably build their football careers back up. There's going to be people leaving, obviously.
Can you seriously see Sibley, Bird and Buchanan dealing with the physicality? They can't deal with it in the Championship. How are they going to deal with it in the First Division?
Well, it's going to be another lesson.
Adam, tell us about that.
You need a manager.
I think
the physicality aspect. It's always whenever you drop down a division, it's always whether it's true or not. It's the lower down you go, the more physical the league is.
Yeah, I think the second you start to put too many in. I remember being a young lad at Derby coming through. The second you play against somebody experienced, physical, technically you're sound, but you get bullied sometimes, and you don't even realise until after the game. Like, I remember playing against like the likes of Olive and Jana and people like that, like pure men, just physically like bullying me in a game. Dennis Wise, players like that who've been around for donkeys. That's where the experience. This is when I went to QPR, we were struggling down at the bottom, but I went there at 28 from Derby, and we signed like Danny Cullup, another like monster from Brighton. But he signed like 4 experienced players, and that was what got us out of the relegation zone eventually. Now, don't get me wrong; these kids will be good players, but you've got to bed them in. You can't just rely on those kids, because it's a man's game of football sometimes, and as well as those young players do, it's a tough one to bed in.
Isn't that where you have the blend and the experience, and you buy those big players physically in your team, so that you can afford to have the kids who can learn the game and put their stamp on it? And they don't have that now.
No, and that's it. You've got to give the youth a chance. That's how I got a chance. But you blend it in with the experienced players around you, and you get taken out of the team when you're not doing well. I don't know. When I was there, you might put you in for a couple of games, then right, out you go, watch what these are doing. I was sent to watch other players play. Gary McAllister, I was sent to go and watch him play rather than be in the squad, because they said you'll learn more from going to watch him than you will playing this week.
You sure you weren't watching Vinnie Jones?
Well, it's players like that you learn from.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tim, I think you've got to shoot, but one final point to you. Tim, you still there? You're still there. Hello. You talk about recruitment, and recruitment is massive. It's been huge for Derby recently, and it is the bugbear of many fans over the last years. Not so much that the resources that have been there, because most managers have been very, very well backed. It's because of the number of managers that have signed a number of players, and it's why Derby are a bit of a mismatch of lots of different players from lots of different managers. Recruitment has to be right. But the big issue for Derby at the moment is there is so much uncertainty off the field. It's a difficult transition going from Championship to League One for very, very stable clubs, let alone a club going through lots of off-field issues when it comes to a takeover, when it comes to the EFL appeal, a club that hasn't submitted accounts for 2 years. That is a very uncertain picture, and Derby County should be able to attract, you suspect, very good players at League One level, but the issue will be they have to get all the off-field stuff sorted nice and early to make sure that whoever is in charge, whether it be Wayne Rooney or someone else, has the best possible chance of getting the club back into the Championship at the first go.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, and I think we're desperate to get somebody who's a man manager, somebody who can get hold of the youth. Exactly what Eric said: get hold of the youth, develop those handful of guys, splash in people like, hopefully, Christian Bielik, who's played in that league. If we can keep hold of Matt Clark, again, who's played in that sort of league before he signed for Brighton. I don't know if Jack Marriott would be coming back again, was prolific in that league. Splash in some colour like Frank did when Frank put in the best midfielder we've had for a long time, and the best winger we've had, and a great centre-half, all playing top-draw football. All you need is 2 or 3 splashes. In our side, it was average, and we got the best out of them. I think we made shocking signings, but those 3 were fantastic. But I think if we can consolidate what we've got, put in some sparkle dust on, in a couple of key areas, and maybe just get somebody who can bring the best out of them. I don't think Wayne Rooney's getting the best out of them, but I like Chris Wilder. I think he's a great manager, and I think he's the kind of person that would get them on that training ground. No nonsense. He'd get the right contacts in. He would sharpen up the ones that we thought, wow, I didn't even realise we had him, or he could do that. And I think Chris Wilder's the man, 100%. And if Derby move Rooney on and put in an experienced manager, and I think Ed said this the other day, we haven't got anybody experienced at that job. They've all been experienced in goalkeeping coaches or experienced in playing careers and everything else, and all had great careers in that. I'm a massive fan of Shane Given, Wayne Rooney, absolutely. But we haven't got an experienced manager, and we need an experienced manager and somebody who's prepared to say yes and no. No, you're not playing, and this is the reason why. There needs to be an iron fist go through that football club to get the best out of the younger talent, like Eric said. But also, if you don't want to play for Derby County, go. Nobody's keeping you there. Move on. But this is the way we do it, and I think I would love Chris Wilder to come to Derby County. I really would. I think he'd be the perfect fit.
What's Nigel Pearson up to these days? Maybe he would be, oh no, wait a minute, we've done that already. Forget
Just
that.
Signed a 3-year deal.
And he's at Bristol City now anyway with a 3-year deal. Tim, thank you very much for getting in touch. Great call and so many terrific points, and speak again soon.
Cheers.
Would Chris Wilder want? He's had a year and a half in the Premier League. It would have to be a big old sell from Derby to get him, because I reckon he's probably thinking, I'm probably deserving of a job in the Championship minimum, and probably the Premier League. That's one to throw about. A couple of your messages there, and we're going to Andy and then Pete. Jeff says, if Rotherham win their last 2 games, they will deserve to stay up, but it will not be the end of the world. Life will go on, just not as we know it. Ray says, I wish the players had the same passion that you guys have. Ed and Eric are spot on. It's hard to take the lack of fight from the players. We deserve to go down, and I'm sure we will. Clive, I've been a Rams fan since I was 7. I've just turned 60. I've never been so stressed. Come on, Luton. Inquisitive Chap on Twitter says, biggest concerns are the finances, rumoured to be shaky, the finances. FFP position also must be shaky. Concerns around the new owner. We can't afford to sack Rooney and the team, which are 5 very, very relevant concerns to have. And a couple of caveats to League One being a bit of a cloggers league. Funky Brewers got in touch to say Hayden Carter, Sam Hughes, both at Burton, both young lads have come into the Burton team. Sam Hughes, sadly for him, suffered an ACL injury, had to go back to Leicester. Hayden Carter's been brilliant from Blackburn. No real previous experience, and they've really stood out through their quality. League One is no longer a cloggers league, and to be fair, there are lots of teams in League One you see and think they're a good footballing side. Russell Martin at MK Dons, for instance, came out with a proper passionate rant about the way he likes to play football, and that's the way it is. But anyway, we won't talk about League One just yet, because it's not done and dusted. There will be time for that, I am sure. A couple more of your messages. Then Paul says, Rooney won a few games when Christian Bielik was fit, but since his injury, we have just about lost every game. Surely we could have picked up a couple of draws. It is those draws that have slipped away that have been so important. I think Derby have only probably won a couple games fewer than a lot of the teams above them. It's just they've drawn so many more, the teams above them. And wow, what 3 or 4 draws. What that last-minute loser, if you want to see what I mean, that last-minute winner for Preston on Boxing Day might have changed things. There's a point gone back straight away. And I'm sure there are other games that Derby have just thrown away when they should have got a point.
Loads.
And it could have been so much different. Yeah, or so different.
Wickham, Coventry.
Yes, we'll probably depress ourselves
Stop
going back
it.
in. Yeah, no, we won't. We'll look forward. Andy is next up. Evening, Andy.
Evening.
Fire away.
Let's go evening all. Let's go through every game and look at how many points we should have had.
No.
Come and see what you should have won.
Oh, no, this is it. Derby would be champions by now if that were the case.
I think we'd have a load of speedboats, wouldn't we, by now? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, dear. I just think it's been a perfect storm, guys. I think we're in the middle of a perfect storm. This has been coming, and it's. I've been one of the most positive people around as a Derby fan. My mates used to sort of give me real stick for being so positive, and you know what? Even at the start of the season, I thought we'll be okay. You know, we'll be all right. But with injuries, suspensions, everything that went off, and you know, Bielik getting injured again, and everything's conspired. But I honestly can't understand how we've ended up with such a weak squad. Other than that, we've not invested. We've let players go. We've let players come to the end of the contract at the start of the season. Huddleston and Martin, okay, they're not everybody's favourite players. But what we'd have given to have had them in our side in the last run of games, 12 games, 13 games. You know, Bogle and Lowe, we sold them because presumably we needed the funds coming in, because we didn't spend any of the money that we got in. You know, Whittaker, we sold. Whittaker's just a prospect, but my God, he showed us what he can do, whether or not, you know, it was a brilliant goal. He was in the right place at the right time. How much would we have given for that this past run of games? To have had someone to put the ball in the net. You know, we've not replaced them, have we? We've just not replaced players.
And that's a fair point, Eric, isn't it? We've often spoken about the experienced players that have been taken out of this Derby side. And the problem is, when you look at this current Derby team, the experienced players that Derby have at the moment are either injured. You think of Curtis Davis out for the season. Christian Bielik might be young, but is still very experienced. A season at Charlton at League One, as I think Tim pointed out, our previous caller. He's had time at Birmingham City when he was very young. Martin Waghorn, by his own admission, is having a season that is nowhere near his usual standard. That's another experienced player. Tom Lawrence has missed half the campaign. He's 27 now.
Andre Wisdom.
Andre Wisdom has been in and out and is out of contract in the summer. lot of Derby's more experienced players, for whatever reason, either injured or in poor form, and that is when you're relying on the experienced players to take a young side through and they're not performing, as Andy says, perfect storm.
Yeah, it is. And it's what we said, the blend hasn't been there. You need more experience. I listened to Darren Ferguson at my old club, The Posh, who, fantastic, got up and they're going to be in the Championship next year. And he said that was the thing he wrestled with, and he made sure his squad was balanced for the whole season, where he had enough in terms of legs, he had enough strength and power when it was needed, when you knew you had to go to Gillingham and play against Steve Evans, but you also knew he had ball players, ball winners that you could protect. And I think that's where we just never had a balanced squad. And that has been a massive, massive problem. We've changed the centre-halves. Crikey, how many times? The back fours, Ed's running out of pens with the different back fours we've had come Saturday. Because we're right, Ed, how many have we had? It's ridiculous. Because, again, through management changing, but also through injury, which you can't avoid. But the calibre, you look at what we've done. You know, we sold Bogle, Lowe, Martin Went was released. We loaned out Carson, Malone, Yofazoon, Bennett, Marriott. We brought in free transfers or loans. Marshall, Byrne, Clark, Taverick, Jozwiak.
We've got no recruitment policy, have we, at all?
No. We've never replaced the number 9. The number 9's been the biggest issue all year. And if we go down, we're going to be the lowest goal scorers. That must be embarrassing for Wayne Rooney.
And just very quickly, Andy,
what he's done.
Andy, before you continue on that point, Deep has tweeted to say Malone and Mason Bennett have scored 11 goals and had 4 assists between them for Millwall. Derby have scored 32 goals themselves. We could have done with them and George Evans when the going got tough. So, I'm sure Malone and Bennett, when they left, well, a lot of fans were saying, absolutely, right decision. But my goodness me, Derby could really have done with those goals this season.
Right decision to let a lot of them go. But if you were replacing them with something better...
Yeah.
And we just haven't done that. And to me, it does make you wonder, really, what the real underlying issues with the finances. None of us really know, because there's been no accounts for the last 2 years, how bad the situation is. It must be really bad because, for us not to be able to... Sander Durston, who was banging the goals in Germany, I think they wanted, was it 1.4 million for him? And as for a striker who's scoring goals regular in a decent league, it's not the end of the world, that sort of money. And we couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford
strange,
it.
Isn't it, that one?
Really strange, really strange.
It's a strange one because he was banging the goals in, as you say, and if they didn't do it at the time when they were first interested in him, it was never going to happen because of the change in EU law, and now he can't sign. So
no, exactly. We can't have him.
So that didn't work, and that's the one thing that Derby have missed for 2 years.
It's one position Philip Cocu wanted. Absolutely, I lost track of the number of press conferences he was in front of us saying, this is the kind of striker I'm after, and they just didn't arrive. Okay, Colin Kazim-Richards did arrive. For whatever reason, he wasn't fancied by Philip Cocu. Might not have been fit enough until a bit further on down the line. But it's that one position. Andy, final point. I've got 2 more calls to get to. If you could make it
very quick. Just with due respect to Cocu and Rooney, honestly, all you can do, you end up with a situation like Eric's just said about the changes in personnel every week. And what do? You have a bad result, and you think as a manager, I've got to change things. I've got to do something different. But what you put, the pool of players you're picking from all the time just isn't good enough. They're not good enough. So it doesn't matter. Really, Bowyer went into Birmingham and he had a squad there where he could actually use players who weren't being used, and he could change things and make a difference. Do you know, if he'd have come into Derby, honestly, I don't think he would have made any difference.
He made one change, didn't he? He made one change, and he built a team. Jozwiak.
Jukovic,
Jukovic came in. He'd been pushed aside, and he said, no, in order to get out of here, we've got to get a number 9 up there, a target man. We can live off him. We can play off him. And boy, did we see the benefit of that when he came to Derby 2 weeks ago.
But that's kind of what Wayne Rooney did when he came in. He stuck CKR up front, and they played off him. I don't know where that's gone, really.
But anyway, he's on one leg, isn't he? CKR's on one leg.
That's a fair point. Bless him. He's run himself into the ground. Yeah, quite. Andy,
and
terrific call.
He's playing on one leg.
Well, he is, and who knows? He may still have the final say on Saturday. Andy, really great to chat as always. Thanks very much for getting in touch. Adam, I was going to ask you a question then. It probably wasn't anything deep and meaningful, but it was still a question I was going to ask you. But it was It was, in fact, it was about the playing personnel, and you, out of the panel, are the most recent. I say the most recent footballing players. If we all played football, of course we didn't. But out of the three of us, and you and Eric, I'm meaning, you did play most recent. So when a manager is coming in and he's clearly not working, and he is chopping and changing, we saw that right at the start of the piece. He was making 9 changes and 6 changes, and it gradually got down. But more recently, obviously, with injuries and changing of formations, he's trying to find that formula. As a player, if your manager was changing things week in, week out, when would you go, not sure that you've got a great plan of what we're meant to do here? Or would you just go with it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think probably he doesn't know what his best team is, and because, they're getting beat, they've got no confidence. He doesn't actually know. What I find absolutely bonkers is that they can attract a top class striker. When I look back and think, signing for Derby, or any player who wants to sign for Derby, it's a massive club. So I honestly think there'll have been strikers out there that would have left their clubs to go for less money to play for Derby County. I honestly do. But I have got no idea how they've not managed to get one. Because the club's huge. It's absolutely huge. And there's players playing for, no disrespect, but the clubs that are nowhere near as big as Derby that would bite your hand off, take less money to come and play for Derby. And you still haven't got a strike. You still haven't got a striker in.
And again, all the questions revolve around the recruitment team and the scouting team, and of course the finances, which you suspect is the biggest factor at play here. 2 more calls to get in, and we've got 8 minutes in which to speak to both Ash and Pete. And Pete is kicking us off. Hello, Pete.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Thanks for having me on.
Hi,
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Pete.
Hey,
Far
Pete.
away.
What prompted my call was the beginning of the show when we started. It started off by blaming Rooney, and then we were into a process of I'm not having a season ticket and so on and so forth. And I just wonder sometimes, I love my club so much, but why do we have to beat up on it all the time? We have just lived through, and the previous caller, Andy, said it, the perfect storm. We've got no investment, but why are we surprised about that? Because if I'm coming to buy a club, if I want to do a deal with Mel, and he tells me it's one price, but then I go into Division 1, surely the price of that club is going to be diminished by going down into Division 1.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go and buy a new car expecting a Bentley and then drive away with a Ford Focus. It just wouldn't happen. And so why are we surprised there's no investment yet? Why are we surprised no deal has been done yet? Because if you think about it, we've had no income, we've had no crowds, and with the greatest respect to Eric and Adam, who, fantastic guys, I've followed you through and through. You guys have never had to play a season with no crowds. You've never had to be in that stadium when 27,000 people were absent due to a pandemic. And I sometimes wonder, everything that goes on in the media, social media, this program, the Derby Evening Telegraph, and so on and so forth, if I was beaten up at work every single week like we are doing at the moment, my performance at work would suffer. And perhaps the one thing that would really get me going is to hear 27 or 30,000 people screaming at me to drive me on to do my best.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is if you add all those things together as part of the perfect storm, and then you lose Bielik, and then you lose Davis. And Mel Morris was at a fans forum a couple of years ago, and he put the question out to them at the time and said, we've got no more money to spend like we have done, and we're going to have to rely on the academy. So my point, I guess, is this has been coming for a long time. Wayne Rooney gets the brunt of it. I understand he's made mistakes. Don't we all under pressure? But the point about it is, as far as I'm concerned, is I started watching this wonderful team in 1967. So you guys can work out yourself. I have yo-yoed Premier League to Championship to Division 3.
You've got some good stories, you have.
Hey, I've got a story to Eric going up there and the bloody game being cancelled.
When we get going again in the car, we could do with you in the car when Ed Dawes and Chris run out of stories.
Otherwise,
me in the back seat.
It's just Eric's quizzes. Otherwise, and we never get them.
Yeah, I've got my skinhead days are gone and all that now. But you know, sometimes I just wonder that we just go a little bit too far. And is it any surprise? And we will be back. We will be back. No matter what happens on Saturday, we will be back.
That's the kind of fighting spirit that we love.
Great
Pete,
sentiment.
thank you very much for getting in touch. And, well, yeah, fingers crossed for Saturday and hopefully the right result. But, as Pete says there, even if it's the wrong result, club still goes on. It'll be an interesting chapter in the history. And then, we move on. Final call then. And Pete or Tim, I can't remember, might have been a combination of both actually, mentioning the academy and mentioning the youngsters. I think it's a point that Ash wants to end on. Ash, evening to you.
Yeah, good evening, lads. I don't like this finger pointing you've got for the kids that you're referring to. The youngsters, they've not been given a fair crack of the whip. They've been messed around. I didn't see the finger pointing when we won 6 out of the 8 games. It works both ways. I mean, when the fans were having a go after the match on Saturday about Rooney, and the 68 wins, we weren't having a go then. You shouldn't be having a go at the lads and the youngsters after winning 6 and 8 games. It was the bringing in the 5 lone players that cocked it all up, and Rooney not making sure what his side was, swapping and changing, messing the youngsters about. If you're on about the kids, which kids are you talking about? They've got skill, they've got passion, they've got energy, they've got ambition. They need somebody good around them, around a good captain that shows them the ropes. It's like apprentices on a building site or whatever. You need somebody to show you the way. It's no good pointing the finger. What about Waghorn and Lawrence and Forsyth? They're a little waste of time. They've proven they've failed. They've been here too long. They've failed. And there you are, picking on the youngsters. I'd have rather seen this season, seeing the youngsters play, bringing through the academy. What's the sense in the academy if you're not bringing the youngsters through? And then we bring an 18-year-old centre-back in from Manchester United because he's from Manchester United. What's it all about? It's ridiculous.
Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's not so much blaming the youngsters, it's more feeling sorry for the youngsters, actually, because they've been asked to carry the can a lot of the time. And for any kid going through a football team, that's a very, very unfair position to be in.
Yeah, and listen, Mel had said publicly, we need to rely on the academy, and we did. We had 5 kids in the team this time last year when we finished with 60 points. That was different. That was mid-table. Unfortunately, when you're in a scrap like we have all year, it's been really difficult. Sibley, as much as he wants to try and do, he's never been anywhere near. They all do. They all did. Buchanan has had a terrific opening 10, 15 games, and he's dropped off. He's needed protected. Bird, all of a sudden, has found the physicality a lot more difficult this year. Have we had the support in around him? I'm not too sure. Well, we could have played a 3 in there. So, no, I've not been a one to have a go at the kids. I've just felt we've needed to support them better. But they've had the second-year syndrome. They've all come on where they've all surprised people. That then is when you've got to really dig in and learn your trade a little bit. And it's been difficult because in a struggling team, that is really hard. And they'll be back. Of course they will. They'll be a major part next year, whatever league we're in.
Ash, thank you very much for ending tonight. Some good points. And I think it's more that it's feeling sorry for the kids more than anything else, because they shone, didn't they, when Derby were doing well, as anyone would when you were that age and progressing nicely in your career. When it's not going well, that is when it can be so tough. The hour has absolutely flown. I dare say, Adam, Ed and Eric, you've probably spoken, as you've been as quiet as you ever could possibly imagine because of all the great calls we've had, and they've been brilliant calls. So thank you all three for your company. I believe we'll speak to all of you on Saturday for the big one, and I look forward to your company then.
Maybe.
Cheers, Chris. Cheers, guys.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.